Hi guys. So this is it. She's like this. Oh my God, I am so in love with this amazing, beautiful twin flame, this guy or gal. And ooh, what I love most about them is how we have inner child pain and trauma. And when I was left by my father for him to go to work all the time, then he'd come back and he'd make these little nitpicky remarks about how I didn't know arithmetic like the other kids, or how I needed to be faster at soccer. I just love how my twin flame triggers my trauma. Okay, so today we're going to talk about trauma response, trauma bonds, because it's huge. And I want to call myself out. I want to call all of us who have been on this path of finding deep soul love, and those of us who feel called to not only a spiritual path but a twin flame journey, who resonate with this concept that there's deep spiritual love from the universe that can actually come into sacred union, and that you can flourish and generate a soul purpose based relationship, and that there's divinity in it, and it's not just a wedding ring. It's not just a regular traditional we're a team, we're best friends, we're roommates, we have sex sometimes, or even amazing sex. You're looking for deep spiritual love, and sometimes we can have a little bit of the Prince Charming is going to save me complex or fantasy. And so we're going to talk about this trauma bonding, because a lot of people are walking around with unhealed trauma, and they're looking to hide it with, or mask it, or soothe it with a relationship. And the twin flame relationship, it's like the Rolls Royce of relationships. It's the holy grail of sacred unions. And sometimes people are called to this because they are coming from a higher place. They have past life soul agreements. They perhaps are part of a lineage that's like, this is my soul purpose, to align and to be one of the 144,000. And sometimes people are attracted to the twin flame theory because they have a big ass trauma. And maybe it's both. Maybe you're here and you've had some trauma, whether it's a severe extreme thing or something really small, but that it's festering, and it's like you have a soul agreement to have this pain be brought up with your person, or with some people. Maybe it's come with a couple of people like me. My trauma was mirrored so many times with so many different scenarios, and it continues to let's say soften and be brought up in layers of the onion with my partner of almost a decade. It'll be actually 9 years in August. So yeah, trauma patterns, like, who would guess? You don't really think about this when you're growing up and you're watching all the Disney movies and reading the fairy tales, and the 80s. For me, it was like Pretty in Pink and Dirty Dancing, and it's like their trauma is actually one of the like biggest pieces of glue that's sticking them together. So let's dive in. I have one slide for you today. It's not very big, but I do like to make art. So we're going to look at this beautiful slide for a second while I discuss twin flame trauma bonds. All right. Let's see if I can do this. No, actually, I just realized I can't look at my notes this way. Okay, so you saw the slide, people. We're going to dive in. So I'm going to just go on camera mode and read off of my notes. So what are trauma bonds? Trauma bonds, first of all, they can negatively impact anyone, whether you're on the twin flame path or you are just lady looking to date and find your baby daddy. Speaking of babies, my 3-year-old is just like screaming, "Mommy," all of a sudden. So you can have one of those too. And luckily, my baby daddy is taking wonderful care of her downstairs. Anyways, what are trauma bonds? Trauma bonds refer to intense emotional attachments that form between two people who have themselves experienced emotional, physical, psychological, psychic abuse or trauma, oftentimes in their childhood, and a bond forms through the pain. So it's like, woo, you got trauma, I got trauma. It's sexy. Now, of course, this is subconscious. We don't really know that. You don't meet someone and go, wow, like, you've been through it, I've been through it. Sometimes people might do that, but usually the bonds are characterized by a subconscious attraction to each other, and you find out just magically that there's a mirror in your wounding. Now, the bonds are also marked by a cycle of kindness, violence, and fear, which leads to a deep sense of instability, confusion, and this can re-traumatize the individuals, which isn't necessarily the end of the world. Re-traumatizing could mean that, hey, it's being re-traumatized because it's time to feel what was too much for you as a child, which was inappropriate for it to happen in the first place. It's being re-triggered so that now you can take responsibility and actually do an amazing job of healing it. So trauma is not easy. The reason trauma is so painful is trauma, like almost if there was a definition, it's like an experience that feels way too intense for you to deal with it. So you go into like a shutdown so that you cannot deal with it now, and then you deal with it later. But it becomes a pattern where it's like, I'm not fully present. I'm actually kind of stuck in the trauma. You can have soul loss, where if you go through an early childhood trauma, let's say, your soul can pop out. This can give some positive benefits, such as people can astral travel. They can have really deep spiritual gifts. That's why a lot of people in the spiritual community, the twin flame community, sometimes have a really hard time being in relationships. Even though they're attracted to the twin flame concept, they can come from a lot of shamanic journeys as children, where they were out of their bodies, and where their chakras were pretty attacked or shattered, and there can be rips and holes in the aura. That's why we want to do energetic healing as well as psychological healing. And that's why at Aphrodite University we do things like drama therapy, sound healing to work the energy in ourselves, expressing our voice, dancifestation, all kinds of tools to really work the whole system, all the chakras. So over time, what happens when there's a trauma bond, whether it's severe, like physical abuse, the relationship goes really sour and there's like beating. You know, I've been physically abused by a dog that bit my face, and that was the worst. I had stitches and tears of blood, and went to the hospital, and they were like, "Were you domestically violated?" It was like, "Yeah, I was. My dog bit me." No, but more seriously, physical abuse is very common. We don't often talk about it in mainstream, but a lot of children are abused. A lot of people struggle with abuse. I think it's getting better physically, but what was once maybe physical abuse one generation ago is now locked in the body, and then often is expressed emotionally in relationships. So whether it's extreme physical abuse or mild, like emotional triggering each other, the trauma bond becomes stronger and stronger, and often leads to a dependence on that person in the relationship, who is then causing the trauma, and it can go both ways. So one example would be Sarah. Let's just call her as pseudonym. Sarah was an interior designer from New York, and was in a traumatic relationship with someone she believed to be her twin flame for like several years. And despite her ex, named, let's say, Noah, his emotional abuse, narcissism, and constant emotional manipulation, Sarah was like super deeply attached to this guy. And they broke up together several times early in their relationship. And when they would break up, she'd experience intense anxiety and fear. And when he threatened to leave her, she'd constantly like do anything she could to get him back, get his approval, get his attention. Even when her friends and her sister, her family would be like, he's not the one, or like, this is not healthy. She kept on going for it, and it made her smaller and smaller and smaller, and the harm caused so much mental and even physical health, autoimmune shutdown. So Sarah then became just like accustomed to believe that she couldn't live without this person. He was her twin flame, and leaving him would just not, like, it would be the end of her life, basically. Until then, one day, of course, the universe plays cosmic jokes on us. He did leave her. He left her for good for another woman, moved on, and she had no choice but to do deep self-healing, either that or to, suicide, which, by the way, suicide, according to a lot of channels and visions I've got is and things I've heard as well, is that when we suicide, we just have to experience it again in another lifetime, and that's not really worth it, because sometimes when we come back, it's even more intense, that we experience lifetimes that are wrought with even more pain, so that we can deal with the suicide and the karma. So anyways, little side note. Why do trauma bonds even exist in the first place? So, according to psychological research, the formation of the bonds is often rooted in childhood experiences. If a person experiences neglect, abandonment, abuse, this is going to happen later on in life for that deep-seated love and validation. They often will just overlook all the red flags in their relationships, thinking that this person's going to love me. So here are 15 interesting statistics about trauma bonds. One is 50% of people who experience emotional abuse also experience physical abuse. So that's high, right? Like, we think about physical domestic violence as like very rare, or it's like poor people that are just weirdos. This is actually something that needs to be more spoken about. 2, trauma bonds can develop between abusers and victims and can make it difficult for the victim to leave the relationship. So raise your hand if you've been part of a dysfunctional relationship that was actually traumatic to your psyche, your chakras, your aura, or maybe even something more extreme like your physical sexual energy. I know I've been there. It can be really, really hard to leave, especially if you have financial dependence on someone, or you're embarrassed to leave because it's like a divorce, or your family wants to be with them. 4, emotional abuse can lead to low self-esteem, depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. So the longer we stay in it, even though it can be harder and harder to leave, the longer we stay in it, the harder it is on our self-esteem. So it's important to get support and to get professional help, to join, at the very minimum, join a women's circle or mastermind or healing space, but don't just get stuck in that relationship and hope that it gets better. Women are actually more likely to experience emotional abuse than men. Number 6, emotional abuse can be just as damaging as physical abuse. I want you to hear that again. Emotional abuse can be just as damaging as physical abuse. So if you are going through a twin flame separation, twin flame runner chaser, twin flame trauma, this pain is registered even in the body, as if you're dying sometimes. And this can actually impact our physical health as well. Abusers may use tactics such as gaslighting, blaming, and isolation to maintain control and power over their victims. 8, trauma bonds can make the victim feel dependent on the abuser for their happiness and well-being. That's the energy vampire. Ooh, you got sexual trauma pain? Great. I'm going to be a spider, put you in my web, and keep traumatizing you over and over and over again. And women, I know women, they're just like, I can't get enough of this guy. I can't leave him, but the sex is so good. Well, he's just re-traumatizing, and he's feeding off of your energy, just like your molestation experience. So this can be really addictive. Trauma can be very addictive and dark, and it's weird how it works, but it's a reptilian brain response. Emotional abuse can occur in any type of relationship, including romantic, familial, or professional. So it's important to address that. If you're in a business relationship that's abusive, it's going to impact your self-esteem, and that's going to impact twin flame union as well. 10, victims of emotional abuse may feel guilty or responsible for the abuse they experience. Isn't this funny? If you're a victim, oftentimes you'll think, what's wrong with me? I'm the one that's the problem. So that's got to shift, and working with a counselor, coach, guide can help rewrite that narrative. 11, emotional abuse can happen in both heterosexual and LGBTQ relationships. Doesn't matter the sex or the gender. 12, it can take time for a victim to recognize that they're being emotionally abused and seek help. 13, therapy and support groups can be helpful for recovering from emotional abuse and trauma bonds. So there is hope, there is support. We don't have to stay stuck. And sometimes things are extreme, like I need help now, I'm being emotionally abused, I'm being physically or sexually abused. And sometimes it can be more normalized, more just like I'm in a trauma response, my nervous system is just not regulated. And so having ongoing support, even if you're a normal, high functioning business owner and you're dating, like have support. That's why at Aphrodite University, the divine feminine, Aphrodite is the fertility goddess, and Aphrodite University is a divine feminine mystery school and learning center for women seeking not only love, but to step up as love leaders and to create businesses and soul aligned purposes that align with their hearts as well as heaven on earth energy. So that's why at AU, we have our mastermind, our Sea Star Mind, as we call it, where women come together and we do all kinds of healing and bonding and exercises and sound alchemy and all these different divine feminine healing arts activities, so that we are not stuck in trauma, but we're constantly turning the trauma into treasure, the milk into butter, pleasure, baby. And 14, emotional abuse can have a negative impact on the victim's physical health, including symptoms such as headaches, being clenched up, having that abuse pattern from childhood, clenching up, chronic pain, digestive issues, even thyroid, adrenal fatigue, nervous system, impacts everything. So all kinds of those mystery Hashimoto's, autoimmune disorders, things like that. So that often stems from emotional abuse, and people will be taking all these herbs and Western doctors and homeopathics, and really what they need to do is to heal the emotional abuse. And there's so many ways to do that. And it's important to get it out of the body. So one of the things that I do and I teach is Dance-a-Fest, moving the energy through dancing, moving it through the chakras, moving it through the system. And one tip that I will share is to sometimes dance slower and move slower and do yoga slower than you think, not power through it, to turn on the traumatized and shut down muscles in the body. And that's how I healed. I haven't 100% healed, but I had 20 years of severe migraines, a level of pain 12 out of 12, 3 days a month, a lot of vomiting, nausea, and I have significantly reduced it and have been off of meds for maybe 4 months now. And when I've pill popped, it's like 1 or 2 instead of having to be on medicine for 3 days. So children and my trauma definitely came from a combination of emotional abuse. I was verbally abused, as well as some severe trauma of falling down. I had like 2 to 3 concussions, hard to say because I was a little baby, a couple of the times. Anyways, last one, children exposed to emotional abuse in home environments are at a higher risk for developing mental and physical health problems later in life. So if there's a mental illness or mental issue in maybe one of your parents, a lot of times it came from emotional abuse, and you healing it in the next generation, as hard as it is, you're taking responsibility for the whole lineage. I know it's a very noble thing, not easy. You're going to help your children, if you choose to have them, to prevent them from having to deal with it as intensively. So great job, my noble friend. All right, here are 6 relationship red flags to avoid. So here are kind of telltale signs of twin flame trauma bonding. One is controlling behavior. If your partner is constantly trying to control what you do, who you talk to, where you go, how you do things in your business, how you dress, sign of an unhealthy relationship. So change that pattern or get out of the relationship. 2 is jealousy and possessiveness. Jealousy is a natural emotion, but when it comes to being excessive and possessive, when it becomes excessive and possessive, it can lead to problems in the relationship and is not healthy. 3 is lack of communication, which can lead to misunderstandings and conflicts. So if your partner is unwilling to talk about important issues, it could be a red flag. So definitely sign up for couples counseling. Use the tools that I teach in my other videos about communication and conscious relationships, such as the dialoguing and nonviolent communication, etc., active listening, etc. Number 4, dishonesty. If your partner is hiding or lying to you, it can erode the trust, which is an important aspect of any relationship, and that can trigger the trauma, and the bond becomes sour. Number 5 is disrespect. If your partner is disrespectful towards you or other people, it can be a sign that they don't value you or your relationship. Probably also they don't value themselves. So it's something that they and you will want to work on if you choose to stick to the relationship. Number 6 is cheating, infidelity, which is a major breach in trust and relationship. That's going to impact self-worth. It's going to be really difficult to overcome. So if there's a cheater happening, if your partner is currently or has cheated, it can be a sign that the relationship is not healthy. It needs a lot of work. It could be a sign it's time to let it go, or at least to get some really deep counseling help, support. And often cheater patterns are multi-generational and are hard to fix, possible to fix, but they need to be healed multi-generationally, oftentimes through the ancestors as well as through early childhood blocks, patterns, self-worth. And I have found that people who come to me and say, I met a twin flame, I'm still married, and they're cheating, they will often cheat me out of money. So it's really interesting how, like, don't trust a cheater. I'm sorry, it's just caused me a lot of emotional abuse in my business. So sending love to the cheaters out there, and hope they get the support they need from maybe a counselor or guide before they make any commitments to anyone else. All right, to those who have any of those above, you probably should look into getting support. You should not settle for the limiting love that you've been receiving. It's probably coming from early childhood wounding, and it's not worth the pain and manipulation that you've been enduring. It's not a twin flame union. It's not a conscious relationship. Now you're gonna go like, do I have hope? Absolutely. So how do we heal from trauma bonds? So what do you do if you have found yourself in a trauma bond? Well, the first step is to recognize the bond for what it is. It's a harmful pattern that needs to be broken. It's not about the person. It's not about the relationship. That is pretty much irrelevant to you right now. That's not the most important thing. I know it could be like so hard to acknowledge that you've been receiving toxic love, and that maybe you feel like you're shameful. But once you go, hey, this is a trauma bond. Hey, my inner child is re-experiencing emotional abuse or sexual abuse, and like, that's what I'm creating right now. Hey, let's stop that. Let's create something different. So next step, absolutely seek support. This can be in the form of, if it's severe, probably professional therapist, counselor. If it's something it's more gentle, ongoing, something that you feel you can handle healing with friends or family, maybe joining a support group, survivors group when necessary, or working with capable, experienced healers. Now, there's everything out there. There are creepy therapists out there. Actually, my family members went to a therapist, and in the newspaper a few weeks later, he was murdered by his wife. The therapist was murdered by his wife. And so they were like, wow, we were getting therapy from somebody that was in a very dysfunctional relationship with a psychopath. And, how sad. So there are good therapists. There are not so great therapists. Follow your intuition. There are super amazing Lightworker healers, tarot card readers, aura healers that have lots of experience. And then there are people that are kind of selling the snake oil, that are quacks, that are not good. And it is challenging because, for example, I work with women who are looking to call in their life partner. I work with women on women's empowerment, and sometimes they will share. I've had someone in the last couple of years who was like, hey, last weekend I was assaulted, I was raped. And it destabilizes them and makes it really hard to move forward with the coaching work, the healing work that I'm doing, because they really need a higher level of trauma healing, an expert trauma healer therapist. And even then, it might just take a couple years to get back on her feet to really call in a twin flame. So it's important to really own, as if you're a counselor, a healer, a light worker, to say, this is not my expertise. I want to refer you to someone else, or I recommend that you find someone in your local area. and really own our boundaries with that. I've even in our MBA program as a blissness mentor, helping women create soul aligned blissnesses from their balanced feminine and masculine energy, like a twin flame aligned blissness. Women will sometimes, one woman came to me, she wanted to up level, increase her income. And I was like, I think it's time for you to up level your package. She was selling $200 packages. I helped her up level to $15,000 packages. And, we helped her design the package. Within like a week, she sold one. It paid for almost all of the program that she was in. We were like celebrating, woohoo. And then within a month, she hit severe trauma and started to have PTSD because all of this joy in her root chakra started to reopen the trauma of being sexually molested by her father. And so what ended up happening is the trauma became the trauma bond with herself and Aphrodite University. And she started saying, Aphrodite University is a scam, and she wanted her money back. And even though we'd been doing everything to help her to create this $15,000 package, and she sold one very quickly. So even though we'd given her 3 months off to go to like a survivor's healing course. So sometimes trauma can bring out the dark side in people, and they can flip from love and light into a more sociopathic, narcissistic bond, and they can trigger these deep wounds that maybe anger and fear that she never got to express towards her father, she then expressed towards her counselors. And so we were able to let it go, to clear it. Of course, she wanted to quit on my birthday, which was really painful. It was like, hey, happy birthday. You're going to attack me. But what was beautiful is that I realized even when women say, they want to call in their twin flame or they want to call in money, if they have extreme trauma, if they're not willing to work on it and take responsibility for it, it's no longer appropriate to work with women who are going to attack and project their trauma onto me or onto the sisterhood and Aphrodite University. So it was a huge experience. And I think a lot of healers, maybe you resonate with this, will try and help their clients and get attacked. And it's important to have psychic tools up, energetic boundaries, legal systems set up, because it's a problem. 1 out of 4 children have been molested. And when those women grow up and they get empowered through your programs, you need to be ready for anything to happen. So it's important to surround yourself with people who love and support you if you're a healer or if you're in a trauma bond situation. So saturate yourself with your sisters who can help you rebuild your sense of self-worth, with your soul family, with healthy, good people. Join organizations, maybe a meditation group, whatever it is. Reprogramming your mindset. Okay, I'm going to wrap up this video because I think we're having a little disaster downstairs with a 3-year-old having a tantrum. So there's all kinds of other stuff that I would love to share, but I'll wrap up and say, let's see who's here. I'll wrap up and say that your heart desires one thing. It's love. Maybe for you, the highest expression of love is one of these cute little people here that I love so much. Were you crying downstairs?
I need to go pee-pee.
Okay, that's like, I don't know, like 1 out of 4 of my videos are met with I need to go pee-pee. So I'm going to go take care of that. I'll put the link for a Heartbreak to HeartbreakTHROUGH training that I have. I'm offering a super deal, 66% discount from Heartbreak to HeartbreakTHROUGh. She knows how to go pee-pee on her own. I will come help you in a little bit, sweetie, but let me just explain that Heartbreak to HeartbreakTHROUGh is an amazing program where you can learn to, let's see if I can get the whole deal.
Mommy.
Okay, so I'll put the link below. It is,
Mommy, come.
yeah, okay. Being a mom and a business owner, here's what you'll get with the training. You can read off of the screen while I go take my daughter to the toilet. This is life, guys. This is twin flame living. It's messy. There's pee, there's interruption, there's hidden heart chakra blocks. So you're gonna get a Heartbreak to HeartbreakTHROUGh training course, uncover your heart blocks with our support, and get the coupon code, or well, it's not a coupon code, just click on the link below. All right, much love and light. I will leave you all with a enjoy your day, be in the flow. It's time to take a whiz. Bye bye for now.